In diagnosing this sketch, the first thing I notice is that there are no horizontal or vertical constraints, not one. The second thing I notice is there are quite a few dimensions that are not on the original drawing. If they're not on the original drawing, you're probably doing something incorrectly. So first of all, obviously it would make sense, I would think, that this line is horizontal, that this one is horizontal, this one, this one, this one. These are vertical. So let's put in a horizontal constraint on this line. We'll do a horizontal on this one. And in some cases, because of the perpendicular constraints, we might not need the horizontal or verticals. So we'll go back and add any that we need to as we go. Then I notice that there's an 8mm dimension here that isn't on the drawing, so let's just delete that, get rid of it. It doesn't exist. We need to make sure that the origin is constrained to the center of the circle, so we could either do coincident or just drag the center of that circle. I'm going to do coincident between here and the origin. Notice that circle turns black. In fact, I recommend that beginners start with either one circle or one line or one rectangle and constrain it immediately. Make sure that it turns black, letting us know that it is fully defined. And then do one entity at a time. Don't draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17 entities, whatever, without having them constrained. Do one at a time, constrain each one. Let's draw a line, and I'm going to make this a construction line from the origin to the midpoint of this line. Now let's just exaggerate this a little bit. So one of the tricks to finding what needs to be done is to drag points, and you can usually tell visually what needs to be done by dragging endpoints. So I'm going to draw a construction line from here, and I purposely offset it a little bit so that you can see that's not vertical, so we need to put a vertical constraint between there. And now we have that all lined up going this way. Now there is no dimension of 50 on the drawing on this side. There is no dimension of 50 on this side, but it seems rather obvious that the length of this line should be equal to the length of that line. Let's delete these two 50 dimensions that don't exist on the drawing, and we'll do equal, make this equal length to that. And then I have a 14 dimension here and a 16 to here, and then there is a dimension of 4 from here to the origin. So I'm going to dimension from one of these lines, and on the drawing it's on this side, so that's where I'll put it over here. Now notice there are multiple white dots. Those are connections that aren't made, so we need to make sure we do those connections as well. And so I'm going to do that distance as 4. And then I want this line right here to be lined up with this line over here. So I'm going to do collinear. Now we could just draw a construction line across there. That way we can visually see. But I'll do collinear. This line collinear with that line. And while we're at it, let's do this line collinear with this line. Notice that a lot of our geometry starts to turn black now, letting us know that it is fully defined. Now the dimension from here to here is a little trickier, and so this dimension doesn't exist on the drawing, so we'll get rid of that. This dimension doesn't exist on the drawing, so we'll get rid of that. This dimension doesn't exist on the drawing, so we'll get rid of that. This dimension doesn't exist on the drawing, so we'll get rid of that. Now I see this one turned blue, so I need to do collinear again, so I'll do collinear, this line with this line, and now this one turns black. I will dimension from this line over to this line, and that distance is twice the radius shown in the top view, so that will be 108. Notice that these two lines turn black. This distance from here to here, given on the drawing, is 56. So I'll put in the 56, and then I want to make sure that this stays centered, so this line right here should be equal length to that line. Now first of all, let's get rid of, so there's some extra stuff in here, some white dots. I'm going to get rid of that, and actually there should be a straight line coming down to the tangent point, And so I'm going to go in reverse. I'm going to go from here up, and I want to change that. I don't want that to be construction line, so I'm going to draw a line from here up. And I'm purposely going to put it at a little bit of an angle here on each side so that I can clearly see what's going on. And then I'll fix everything up. And I accidentally got to the midpoint there, so you have to watch out you don't get some constraints that you don't intend. And again, I'm doing this in a way maybe a little bit different than what I might do it usually, so that you can see what how I'm working out the logic on this. So I see that it put the tangent on this one. I didn't get the tangent over here on this one, so I need to do that tangent. And then I want those lines to be vertical, so I want that to be vertical, and I want this to be vertical. And then I need to trim out this little piece right here and this little piece right there. There's some geometry that's left here that I'll delete that. And so I see that this turns black on this side. I'll trim it on this side. And I see there's some geometry left over, so I'll do a crossing window, select that, and it's gone. Now when I did that, I lost a constraint someplace. I believe the collinear between here and here, so I'll do the collinear, put that back in between here and here, and I see a bunch of my geometry. I lost the dimension on this, and again, if you're not sure, start dragging geometry, and actually I can see several things. So I lost the tangent over here, so in my trimming I have to be careful that I can lose some constraints that I wanted to have. And so let's do this again. I'll do coincident, put this back at the origin, put the dimension back in there. I somehow lost that during my trimming. It turned black again. And then I lost the 16 when I did a trimming. So this is where if you do one line at a time and constrain it, you won't run into this situation where we have to go back and fix things. Now I see that this line right here and this line right here is still blue, and so I'm going to drag this, and I see that this isn't staying centered, or this line right here isn't staying equal length to that line, and so I'll drag this back approximately where I want it, and I'll do equal again, so this line equal to that. So drag endpoints when things don't constrain as you expect. Drag endpoints. Now these two lines are supposed to be angled right here and here, so I'm going to delete that perpendicular constraint on that end, and I'm going to delete this one, and I'll delete this one, and then I'm going to drag this in towards the inside. Now because I made this one equal to this one, both of them drag towards the inside, and then I'll dimension the distance from here to here, and I got the angle, and I want that horizontal distance. Let me undo that and put that in again. I went too far back. So I'll do dimension. Let's do the horizontal length of that line, and that distance is 4. And because these are equal on both sides, it should have turned black on both sides. So I must have undone too far when I did my undo a few minutes ago. So let's just see. Yeah, so I accidentally undid back to where I took off the equal on there. No, that one's okay. Let's see where we're. Let's make sure that these two are equal. Make that one equal to this one, and now it all turns black. It's all fully defined. So it's a process of dragging endpoints, using only the dimensions are given. If you're ever using a dimension that isn't given, you are probably doing something incorrect. So stop, ask questions. And by the way, the easiest way to ask the question is to do to go to File, Export, and then export your file as a Fusion 3D file, and then post that to the forum.